And, and I think what we should do is start with Ambrose Brennan. Ambrose, why don't you turn your microphone on?
I can hear you now. I'm gonna go. Good luck.
Oh, shit, that's what I'm doing. I'm really gonna panic on this.
You don't do anything.
Turn your microphone on.
When you're done, click the X. That's all you have to worry about. Just don't touch anything.
Ambrose, your microphone is turned off. Go down to underneath the pictures. There's a mute button. And go click on that, the microphone down there.
I'm having trouble here.
Hello?
How's that?
You're on.
Is that it? Okay.
I think we got you.
I'm trying to reach the owner of Port's Manshire in Houston. Does that ring a bell by any chance?
Reach who?
I'm trying to reach the owner of Port Manshire in Houston.
Oh, your property. Forget it. Okay, Ambrose, you really basically open up this camp from Dong Suai.
Yeah.
So it was a combat parachute assault for Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I have to say, I didn't participate in the parachute assault. It was kind of hokey. There wasn't any VC up there, but Colonel Kelly and Sergeant Major Dunaway and a whole crowd of hangers-on and the Mike Force, I guess they needed to get a jump.
Hoping to be the last combat jump in history.
Probably. I hope they didn't put stars on those wings, because it was be a sham.
No,
But anyway, so they went in and actually they were given objectives. We followed in a helicopter assault. So we were right. The helicopters led us off on the objectives. And it took them the better part of the next day to get all the parachutes and thing pulled together and get out of there. So I have to, I will tell this story. I probably shouldn't tell it, but anyway, because the whole team was sitting in Dong Suai, we all thought it was a sham. We seriously thought about taking a Jeep up the road with a 45 RPM battery powered, and we had Barry Shelder's Soldiers from the Sky queued up on it, you know, and we were going to go to the edge of the drop zone, and the team wanted me to go with about 4 or 5 guys. And when they jumped out of the airplane, played soldiers, you know, special forces soldiers coming from the sky. I can't remember all the words now. And you know what? I was 27 years old at the time, and it was attractive idea. But then, fortunately, God got a hold of me and shook me up and put some common sense in me. And I said, guys, we can't do this. You know, we're not going to do this. So at any rate, I want to go back to 2 weeks before the assault, because I called 2 ranch hand missions in there about a week apart, enough time for the Agent Orange to have an effect on the vegetation, since we had to chop out a pretty wide area, pretty wide circle for camp defense. And the result for me, and I hope, you know, if any of your guys on your teams got cancer from Agent Orange, they can call me up and tell me about it, because I was the one that did it. I'm on my 3rd cancer right now. I had leukemia and prostate cancer, and now I've been on multiple myeloma for 14 years. Originally, I was only supposed to live 3 years, but something happened, and I got some new chemo, and my numbers are normal. They haven't been normal since A-344. And so I thank God for that. But I think of all the, not only the Special Forces soldiers, but all the people that supported us, the people, the kids and the families, the CIDG, but also the village. They got up, they walked through all that stuff, which was laying on the ground. I don't know how long the active life is for Agent Orange, but you know, we can say maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months. And so those little kids and everything, and they probably have dealt with a lot of cancers that their medical responsiveness might not be able to deal with. But anyway, we went in, we got started cutting the bamboo. Nick Hunt is not here. He was my XO. Steve will show you the book he wrote. The name of the book is From Budapest to Dong Xuai, I guess. I don't know what's the name of the book, Steve?
Budapest to Vietnam.
To Budapest of Vietnam, yeah. Nick, you know, if you want to get a book and read about a real American hero, Nick was born in Budapest and during the war, and he came out of there with his family in refugee status. I just talked to him on the phone, and he's been a retired 06 for quite some period of years, helping out the West Virginia penal system. And he was doing that yesterday. He's still working. You know, Nick is a true American hero, and it's an American story. I wish I could make a movie out of it. You know, if I had the money, I would make a movie out of it. But a great guy. But anyway, we had a lot of bamboo to cut. So I told Nick, well, first of all, I told Nick he couldn't jump, which really pissed him off. And I think a little bit of him still is pissed off today, but that's okay. I thought it was stupid, and I wasn't going to get my XO involved in it. Anyway, I just wanted to say that about the Agent Orange business in case any of your guys have succumbed to cancer related to Agent Orange and the VA has diagnosed them. It's not really worth the $3,500 a month 100% compensation that I'm getting, but it's a good amount. You know, that's fine that the government wanted to do that. At any rate, the camp went on. I set a standard that we would cut 1,000 meters from the center of the camp out, because I figured we would put the M60 on the perimeter and we could reach out and touch the NVA or the VC if they wanted to come into camp. They take a lot of casualties, but that was a lot of bamboo to cut. And so I sent Nick to Saigon. I gave him enough money. Well, he had the money anyway. I told him buy every machete in Saigon and then come back. I think he came back. I thought he'd come back with maybe 2,000, but he came back with about 1,200 machetes. So we were sharpening those things every night because the strike force would go through 3 of them a day. The camp construction went pretty good. I just to tell a couple little vignettes from that, and then I'll stop talking. So there was one lone VC out there, and he was about 500 meters from the camp construction. I guess he had nothing better to do, so he shot a round or 2 rounds. He didn't have that much ammo during the day while we were cutting bamboo. Well, all the strike force, you know, they got their stuff on. They thought it could be an attack, you know. Well, that shut us down for an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3. Some little worm out there messing around with us with H&I fire from his AK-47. So my boss came in. Jacques Bernier was his name, Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel. And he said, you know, how's it going? And I told him about this lone VC who was bothering the crap out of us. So he didn't say anything to me, but here's what he did. He got in a helicopter and went to the VIP bed at General Siemens headquarters at 2 Field Force. He walked in. This is the kind of guy he is, and really in the Special Forces tradition. He walked in and said to the SGS at the Field Force, "I have a TAC-E. I want to talk to the general." The general invited him in. He told the general what was up. Now, the general, that's a 3-star there, Field Force commander. He picked up the phone and called General Depew, who was commanding the Big Red One. And he picked up the phone and said, "Depew," and this is probably midday, "I want a battalion in Bunard by nightfall." Well, I knew nothing about this, but here comes this chopper with a battalion commander, a couple of his staff members, and of course, I saluted him and I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm bringing the battalion in here." Well, I thought that was great. There's nothing like 750 armed Americans to help you out build a camp. And so that was great. So we split the perimeter up. I took half, he took half. We worked it out. And a few days after that, the ADC, the Assistant Division Commander, came up there. And of course, I saluted and reported to him. So did the battalion commander. Now, my mind is not working too good these days, and I can't remember the general's name, but he became the Chief of Staff of the Army later on. So I reported to him, and he kind of gave me a dirty look. And he said, "Well, I'm going to let the battalion commander show me his area and report." So I waited for him. And I took him around. I was just gave him a quick tour of what we were doing. That was all, which we hadn't advanced that much in the camp construction at that point. And, I got in step and walked by next to him, get in his pace and everything else. And here's what he said to me. This is almost word for word. I'll never forget it. "You Special Forces people are all alike. You get out here and you get your tit in a ringer, and then you expect us to come and bail you out." Well, I'm Irish. The hairs on my head went up a little bit. I got a temper too. And I almost said something that I would have been very sorry for saying. It would have been a court-martial defense probably. But anyway, I just kept, I didn't say anything to him at all. And I took him around, he did his thing and he went back home. Now, not long after that, the camp construction took about 2 months. I was there for the 2 months, and then I had to transfer into the 173rd. Anyway, I went on R&R in the meantime. At any rate, here comes CWG XYZ. What was his name? It's a German name. He was Depsenk. He was the number 2 guy in country, 3-star. After Westmoreland. God, I had his name, but I forgot it. Anyway, he came in one day and I took him around and showed him what we were doing. And he said, "You got any problems?" I said, "Yes, sir, there is one. Here's a problem. We've dedicated 10 to 15 guys to haul water from the rice paddy. We go down and pick the water up in the rice paddy. We bring it up here. We cleanse it as best we can. We had 1 tank full of water, and that's a burden. It takes those soldiers out of my labor force. So that's a problem. And of course, in the meantime, the airstrip was being conducted by an engineer platoon, by an engineer officer and his equipment. 3,000 foot with Peneprime on it. 2 days went by. On the second day after this general had been there, the 3-star, here comes a 10 kW generator. I want to say 200, 300 feet of pipe in sections, probably 2-inch, maybe 3-inch pipe with and then a whole three big tubs, I'll put it that way. There's an actual official name for
Well,
them.
take your time. I'm in that meeting.
Yeah. And then
Bye.
and then an ertolator. Well, if you know what an ertolator is, it's a cleansing machine. It's a cleansing machine for water. Now, I'm thinking that he had gone back to Saigon and activated probably an engineer officer in the staff. And he told him what the situation was, and the engineer officer, put this stuff together and got it flown out to me. But there you again, you see the difference between. Now, this man took his regiment from around Battle of the Bulge area, all the way to the Hitler's nest down in southwestern Bavaria, and then of course he went on from there to be a 3-star general. But he had a different approach to what a general needs to be doing when he makes a field visit. He doesn't go out there with a chip on his shoulder. He goes out there to assist, help out wherever he can. And of course, he had the power with the 3 stars to make that happen. I really remember these stories because it shows the contrast between the guy. Now, he never went to be the chief of staff of the Army. The other guy did. I always thought to myself, doesn't he have a U.S. on his patch, just like I do? So who the hell was he talking about? You people. Who is you people? But that was the climate that the Special Forces lived in at the time with we'll call them the regular Army. I know I can understand what happened there, but that was the way it was. But the 3-star combat veteran out of World War II and Korea, he had a different approach about any combat soldier trying to do a job in the field. The star can help him out. If we can help him out, let's help him out.
What year was that?
This was, we went in April 66. I'm sorry, April 67. The camp was done into May. Into June was basically pretty much completed, a couple of months.
All right, so the first guy you're talking about, that probably was Wayan.
Huh?
Was Wayan, W-E-Y-A-N-D?
No, it wasn't. I know General Wayne. It wasn't him.
Palmer was his boss.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Palmer either.
At second field.
Maybe while I'm sitting here and you guys are talking about it, I'll think about his name.
Now, in MacV, Depcomus MacV was Hunches, and the chief of staff was Rawson.
Yeah. No, this guy was the D-Sync, the deputy commanding general, 3 stars. It's his German name. His father fought.
H-E-I-N-T-G-E-S.
Henkes, yes, General
Oh.
Henkes.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay.
General Henkes, yes,
I
sir.
believe
Yes,
he
sir.
had been the senior military person in Laos in the early.
Yes, at one point, yeah.
So he certainly knew SF
Yes.
and was a guy who was prepared to help. Now,
Yeah, now I just tell one other little story. Toward the end of the camp construction, I had scheduled a TDY. I mean, an R&R where my wife in Hawaii. Without going into all the details, her family is linked up with at that time, the Sink Aft Pack. 4-star Air Force general was in their family somewhere. I don't know how they fit in. I told her, don't get involved with generals, please. We're going on R&R. So anyway, sure enough, she got involved with the general. We went back to his house, and then we went out to Kauai and we're by ourselves. Then we came back through. It was Sunday. He said to Ambrose, we have big, loud Hawaiian shirts on. We had gone to mass with he and his wife. He said, Ambrose, come on, let's go down to the office. Well, I knew what he was talking about. He wanted to go down, make a visit, check his responsibilities for all the Air Force in the Pacific. I didn't think I needed to be involved in that. So I said, no, that's okay, sir. And he said, no, Ambrose, let's go. So I understood the verbal order when I get one. Anyway, I went down with him. We went 3 floors down in the headquarters, in the basement. And the duty officer popped up, the 06 duty officer, and saluted him and started giving a report. So I wandered around the operations center there, and they had a big map on the wall of, all of Vietnam and Cambodia, Laos, blah, blah, And there on the map in Vietnam was my little operation, putting the camp in Bunard. The name of it was Operation Harvest Moon. And there was my little camp on there. I thought that was so cool that way off in another world, way away from the sand and dust of putting in a special forces camp, some 4-star general had me on his map. So after he got briefed, I told him, I showed him what it was, and I was really impressed. Of course, if we needed any airstrikes to run for us, which we did not use at that time. Now, I had called in other airstrikes earlier when we went operations up there, but while we were there and inside, we had no reason for airstrikes to be called. But they had us on the map because we were a combat unit. We were one of the high priority MAC-B projects at the time. And he needed to know if he was going to run some sorties in support of me. So that was great. Anyway, I just thought I'd interject that. That's all I want to say for right now.
Look, before you went out to the camp, you had been at Dong Xuai. And it seems that after the battle that took place at Dong Xuai, I think it was your team that came in to relieve the camp. But then your team is moved out immediately again to go to Bunard and open up Bunard.
I was at Dong Xuai from A-342. A-342 went in there in the summer of '66. I arrived about the 1st of November of '66, and then I stayed there till the 1st of June '67. Well, we went to Bunard from there.
Another team there before you.
Yeah.
After Stokes' team. And then
Charlie Steinmetz was the team leader when I came on to Dong Xuai.
Okay. But your whole team had been moved to Dong Xuai, and then rather than send somebody else out, apparently they felt your experience at Dong Xuai was needed to open up a camp at Bunard.
Well, the way it happened was kind of like this. I'd always wanted to command a rifle company. And I won't go through all of that, what I went to get a rifle company. But anyway, one Sunday I took my 1049 up to my boss, Jacques Bernier, up at Song Bay. And I said, I need to talk to you. And he said, well, let's go have some martinis. So we went down. I don't drink, so I had a martini anyway. And I said, sir, I'd like to request your support to make an appropriate recommendation on my request for transfer to the 173rd. And I told him that I wanted to command a rifle company if it was possible. And he said, okay, I'm going to approve it, recommend approval on it, only if you build a camp for me. I said, oh, I always wanted to build a camp because the CIA had put the camps in some god-awful tactical positions. And if I had to build a camp from the ground up, I was going to do it the best I could as an infantry officer. So I said, sure, I'll be happy to do it. So that's really the way that our team got designated to go up to Bunard and put the camp in.
Interesting. Bob, you ended up as a CO of the team, what, 69?
Yes. And I got there, he didn't build my bedroom as good as I'd like to have it. But no, it was fine. Bunard was a good camp. It kind of spooky off at there, southeast of Song Bay. But it was a thing. That was my second deployment to Vietnam. First deployment was working for Charlie Beckwith, the 2nd 327th, 101st, as a platoon leader and company commander. Then a little trip to Japan for some medical. Come back, did that. Finished that up in January 69, I guess. And came back and thought, well, I'm tired of slopping around the jungle, so I called and went to flight school and went back and flew helicopters the 3rd deployment. So I ended up flying medevac in all 4 corps. So that's pretty much my fun in Vietnam.
Well, apparently I'm jumping over things here a little bit fast. Larry Cryle disappeared here moments ago. It's too bad because Ron Copley,
Yeah,
you and Larry seem to have been involved in something about in March of '69. Maybe they're 2 separate incidents or they're part of the same. But you both got, or he's got an ARCOM with V, and you got a Bronze Star. And that was the next thing that seemed to have happened in the history. So tell us a bit about that.
well, I believe that was the incident where we went out to the northern part of the TAOR, and there was a activity. There was some people out there that, of course, they were not supposed to be there. So Larry and I think we had about 150 men, went into this. I don't think it was a village. It was just a gathering, whatever. And we called in, Larry called in CH-47 to take the people out over to a secure area. I would guess there were maybe 50, something like that. And there were some tunnels around. And I looked at Larry and I said, "You want to go in there, Doc?" And he said, "Nope." I said, "Well, I'm not going in there." So we left them alone. And so we started to leave, and there was a family, it was a woman and 2 young boys. I guess the boys were maybe 5 and 7. So we escorted them out. But on the way, that evening, I may be getting my events mixed up. I'm not real sure, but we stopped, and I had put out. I was the lieutenant. I had put out
I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back.
an ambush, and it went through the interpreter, who went to a Cambodian, who then went to a mountain yard to put out this ambush, ambush on the trail leading into our defensive position for the evening. And they didn't go for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't understand or whatever. And that before dark, there was a squad of VC that came into the area, where our defensive area, and killed a couple of people. And I was there. I just called in the medevac to get these guys, the dead out. And I think that's the event that you were referring to. Larry was involved in a different event. And that may be the one that you're talking to. That was not on my patrol. He was, is he on?
Yeah, back on
there you are, Doc.
the video.
He can tell you about that. Why don't I hand it off to you, Doc? Tell him about the event that I think he's asking about.
his video isn't hooked up yet. There you go. Nope, you're still working on the video, audio rather. Oh,
Click on the mic, Doc.
Oh.
Unmute it.
okay, and we'll come back to that. He's having trouble with the microphone. There you go, Larry. Can you hear me, Larry? Can you respond? His microphone is off.
Yeah, he's off.
All right. Bob Pryor,
Robert?
about 3 months, you're muted, so you got to unmute too. There you go. About 3 months later, you end up with a DSC. Tell us about that event.
About what?
Robert D. Pryor on
Yeah.
6/20/69, Distinguished Service Cross.
Oh, the Distinguished Service Cross.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I only have one of those, so I have 2 Purple Hearts. So the camp was attacked, and they breached the south and east wall, and we lost communication. And there was 3 of us: John Parda, first lieutenant, and he was acting detachment commander because the hell was that guy's name, Ron? The guy that was the commander when I got there?
Mansfield?
No, Mansfield came after me. No, that guy,
Chester Jones?
Pastor Jones, that's it. Yeah, he'd Colonel Lamar had yanked him out that Monday, and this was Thursday night, Friday morning. So John Parda had only taken over the team for a few days. Larry and Top were in Australia on R&R, and Arona and Dudley were on operation. And I don't know where you were running, a whorehouse somewhere.
Lawson and I were on a hill overlooking the camp, and I had called into Parda to bring my patrol in, and he said not to do it. But
Yeah.
we were watching all of that from,
Right.
On the other side of the pond.
Yeah. Well, what happened was we'd lost, I mean, there's only the 4 of us. I was firing mortars, and the Distinguished Service Cross is bullshit. I'll tell you that, because it's based on what they know. And do you remember Fontan, our interpreter?
Yeah.
He's we had 2 interpreters. One was named Tom, and the other was Fontan. Fontan had a PhD, actually. Went to college in France. And when we'd lost the south and east wall of the camp, Parda said that somebody needed to go out there. And actually, I was, you were my XO. I wasn't that great of a soldier. The best soldier there was Charles Hinson. He was a much better shot than me. But I decided I'd rather die while I'm living than live while I'm dead. So I went out, took Fontan. He got killed almost immediately. And everything else that happened is not in the DSC. And so when I read the DSC, I think of it as bullshit, because that's not what happened. It's just what they knew about to begin with, from the radio contact. But I eventually lost my radio, and that's when things got serious. So, and eventually, if you're on the Horn, it was a while that they'd lost contact with me, and eventually the fighting had gone down, and they sent Hinson out to find me. Next thing I know, I'm doing Zoom with you guys. Might have been 1 or 2 things happened in between.
Well, all I have is the DSC orders.
Yeah. Well, that
So,
part happened, of
You
course.
got to tell us the rest of the story.
I really don't like to, Steve. The reason I don't is It's not that it bothers me. It does not bother me at all. The problem is, I have 4 major head wounds. I lost about 20% of the brain on the right side. Still have a couple of bullets in there, just kind of drifting around. And I don't trust my memory. So how do I know what I tell you is true? I hate wannabes. So I'm always kind of reluctant to say what happened, because with all my brain damage, I don't know that it's right, because I know some of the things I remember from that night are absolutely impossible. For example, I remember experiencing an out-of-body experience. I was floating around watching John Parda cut off what was left of my clothes. He rolls me over. There's a big hole in my back. I don't remember that hole at all. And I thought, it was total bullshit. And when I could finally walk again a few months later, first thing I did was went to a mirror and looked behind me. And sure enough, there was an exit wound there that I never knew happened. And so I really don't trust my memories. But the main thing that I can tell you that really is true, because the proof's in the pudding, is as Ron knows and as Larry knows, we had spider holes and alcoves around the perimeter. And it was where the women and children went to hide when things got hairy. And this is actually the painful memory of mine, because I did take the language course. I went through the, about a 12-week Vietnamese language school through DSI. Or DSLI, right? No, what do you call it? Defense Language Institute.
Yeah, that's it.
El Paso, Washington.
So, but anyhow, with Fawn killed, I was afraid I was going to say something wrong, that my Vietnamese wouldn't be good enough to tell the women and children where to go to be with Carl and mainly Parda, because Charles Hinson was on the north and west walls covering that area. And one of the women got killed, one of the children got killed. And I've always had this guilt. Did I tell them something wrong and they went in the wrong direction? I don't know. It always bothered me, but about 35 of them lived. And so when I went back to Vietnam in 2003, to Bunard, and again in 2014, and see the next couple generations down of those people whose lives I saved, it made me really feel good. But until then, I couldn't even talk about it because I was so ashamed of myself. What if I said something wrong? What if that woman got killed because I said left and meant to say right? My Vietnamese was never that good. So it was pretty troublesome. But they lived, we held the camp, and here we are. So that was then, this is now. That pretty much covered what you're asking, Steve?
Robert's
Yes.
discussion of
What?
how we tried to help people has prompted me to believe that, and we saw several instances of this while I was there, which I won't talk about. Now, the United States lost the war, but I have to believe that maybe millions of Vietnamese people remember these actions, these good hearts that they encountered from time to time in the American, particularly Special Forces, will say, or the people who were in advisory roles at the district, not necessarily line units. They've had encounters with these guys that were extremely positive on an individual basis. An American did something for them.
That's true.
They have told these stories to their families, to their children and grandchildren.
That's right.
So on that level, particularly I think of medics, on that level, the United States won the war.
Yeah.
Maybe not at the national level, but we made good friends over there among the Vietnamese.
Yeah, I still have Vietnamese friends. Although we haven't had dinner with Vietnamese friends since yesterday when we had dinner with two. Can you see my camera right now?
It's dark.
Your light is pretty.
There's my wife. She had dinner with me. She's been to Bunard. I don't know how to make the camera lighter.
As yet, light up some more lights in your
You need light.
I just put on more light here in the room. We keep it kind of dark in this room.
You on camera?
Well, if they can't see, they can't see.
There's nothing wrong with the camera,
Is that better?
much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep it kind of dark in here. Oh.
You missed the last session.
Pardon?
Missed the last session from Bunard. In
Yeah.
Bunard, we finally got him to tell his story,
Uh-huh.
where as a result of a mortar coming into the camp
Uh-huh.
or coming into the village, one mother brought her 5-year-old kid
Right.
with all of her intestines outside of her body, covered in mud,
Oh. Covered in what?
dirt,
Urine.
lying on the
That would
ground.
help. The ammonia in there would help temporarily. It's certainly no cure.
He went and patched her up, cleaned every inch of the intestines, did everything necessary. And a couple of months later, he's going through the village. And one of the CIDG or one of the villagers asked him, motions him to come with him. He
Right.
didn't speak any common language. He went with him. He goes to this house, and this little girl is there, healthy as a horse.
Oh, really good. Yeah. I love going back to Vietnam. Been back 4 times, and I want to go back one more time because when I was in Vietnam during the war, I drank one banh mi ba, tasted like crap. Each time I go back, I drink one banh mi ba, which for the last 4 trips is now called ba ba ba. They changed the name, but the can looks the same. And I drink that in honor of those who couldn't come back, who never got to drink another banh mi ba. So if I go one more trip to Vietnam, I'll drink one more of those nasty beers, and I can say I drank a whole 6-pack of banh mi ba.
What's Bunard like
Kind
now?
of a tradition for me.
Where is Murphy, Texas? That's where you're at, right?
Murphy, we're 22 miles from downtown Dallas, and we're about 1.5 miles from South Fork Ranch. South Fork Ranch, if you ever watched the TV show Dallas.
Okay.
Ewing family. Yeah, we're right by that. They're on,
North Houston.
pardon?
You're up there in North Houston.
Yes, northeast.
North Houston.
Northeast of downtown Dallas. And the ranch is about northeast of us.
I'm in Houston.
Pardon?
I'm in Houston.
You're in Houston. I thought you were in Austin.
No, Houston. And you get a lot better Vietnamese food in Houston than you get in Vietnam.
No, we took my wife and I took a couple of young Vietnamese, 128 and 119, 2 young men that are grandparents of refugees. Well, we took them out to dinner yesterday. We have a lot of friends. Not that we speak them either, because we have friends of all ethnic groups. But just by coincidence, yesterday we took 2 Vietnamese friends out. So Vo, and then the other one has an American name. Actually, in Vietnamese, it's pronounced Va, but he tells everybody his name is Vo because nobody can pronounce it correctly. And then his cousin was Kenneth. A couple of nice guys, really nice, enjoyable to talk to him about Vietnam.
I don't think that was his name. I think that's just what you interpreted it to be.
Whose name?
His name, he said something else that I couldn't pronounce.
Oh, Kenneth?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I need it. Oh, no. I had my hearing aids on. I don't know what's
Hey,
going on.
Steve,
Can I tell a Vietnamese refugee story?
Pardon?
Can I? I'm asking Steve if.
Go ahead.
Okay. We talk
Okay.
about being friends with Vietnamese and so forth. I just a recap. In 1975, I was the commander of the JCRC POWMIA field team.
Right.
Okay, and
What year?
1975.
Do you know Randy Sassani?
Cristani, no.
Sassani. CESS. No, CES. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Anyway, we had the mission of running a Vietnamese and Cambodian refugee camp in Thailand at the time.
Uh-huh. Right.
Thailand.
Uh-huh.
And so I went home in September, late September 75, and went back to Fort Bragg to the 7th Group. But about a month or so later after that, I went up to visit a friend of mine who was working in the Pentagon, and we went out to a Chinese restaurant there in I guess in Arlington, Virginia, and we had dinner. It was fine, and I went in to use the bathroom afterwards, and there was this Vietnamese guy, like in a sort of a waiter's uniform, and he was just standing there watching me. And I went in to did my thing at the urinal, and I got through, and the guy's watching me, and then I went over and washed my hands, and they do teach you that in OCS, by the way, to wash your hands. And
Yeah, I was enlisted. I never washed my hands.
There's an old joke about OCS versus West Point. You always get it. But anyway, so I'm doing my thing, and this guy's watching me, and I thought, this is kind of interesting here. So I get through, and the guy says, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Are you Major Grimshaw?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he says, "Well, my name is," he gave me his Vietnamese name, and I can't remember it now. And he says, "I was a refugee that came through your camp." He says, "You just came back from Thailand." And I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "Well, I was a refugee in your camp, and I just want to thank you for helping me come to America."
Where was that camp? Was that Oranje Patak?
At Utapao, in Utapao, Thailand.
Oh,
Yeah.
Something,
Air Force
And-
Base.
and-
something to go along with your other is you should have been taught that you wipe with your left and eat.
Well, anyway, by this time I had cleaned up, and he got my attention, and it just floored me. The guy, I want to thank you for helping me come to America. And I went outside, and I talked to my friends and that were sitting at the table, and I said, I whipped out my fancy Gold American Express card. I said, "Dinner is on me."
Right.
And we're in a Chinese restaurant. I forgot that part, but we're in a Chinese restaurant. And anyway, well, what happened? Then I told him the story, but the guy absolutely floored me. He was so polite, he was reverent, and so forth. And he was like, "I want to thank you for helping me come to America." And I was like, "Oh, dude, it doesn't get any deeper than this,
It sure doesn't.
And I thought to myself, hey, you really want to thank my NCOs too, because they're the guys that ran the camp. I just kind of poke my head in the door once in a while to kind of see what's going on, But yeah.
Larry has an interesting story. Is Larry hearing us? He has an interesting story about running into somebody from Bunard after the war. Are you with us, Larry?
No, he's not. He had trouble with microphone. He seems to have disappeared. We have an interpreter here who had been at Loch Ninh, who lives in Houston. So when we did the Loch Ninh Zoom meeting, I invited him here. And it was really very good to have him. First of all, his English was excellent. Second of all, he was at Loch Ninh spanning the time that everybody on the or more people on the program were compared to each other, because everybody there was for 6 months or maybe a year, but he was there for longer than that, so he could tie things together between the people. And he had gotten into a firefight at some point, and he was medevac to an American hospital where he lost an arm and a leg. And the American nurse took him under wing, got him sent to the United States, where he recovered, and got citizenship.
Right. Good.
And
Wow.
he joked that it cost him an arm and a leg to come to the United States.
That's a high price to pay. It was a funny refugee story. I used to work for the San Bernardino Department of Veterans Affairs. I was a Veterans Benefits Specialist. And this was in 1975 when they were bringing the refugees in through Norton Air Force Base, and my office was across Tippecanoe from the Air Force Base. And so as the refugees came through Norton, they asked them if they had any connection to GIs. If they did, they'd send them over to me for interview to find out if maybe there was something I could do for them through the department. Well, it was called Veterans Administration back then. And they sent one lady to me, and she really couldn't speak English, but so they sent her to me. Actually, we had 4 people in my office, but I was the only one that spoke it to me. So I got the people who could speak English. And so the lady, I'm interviewing her. She comes into my office and she says she had married a GI, an Air Force guy, who stayed behind when the country fell. This was in May of 75. So the first refugees were coming back. And he had died in April, a month or a week before the country collapsed. He died in Saigon of a heart attack, but he'd been out less than a year. And so that's presumptive service connection. The only problem is the only thing she had was a marriage certificate showing the guy's name and, that he was an American. And she had no military service records on him, nothing like that, no death certificate. So to prove that he was the veteran and to prove that he died of a heart attack and prove the date of death was impossible, really. It was really impossible. So I interviewed her and I figured out from talking to her what hospital he died in. And it was the one ran by
Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day Adventist. How'd you know that?
That was the main hospital in Saigon.
That is key to the story. So she's sitting in my office. So I called the Seventh-day Adventist headquarters somewhere back like in Washington, D.C. or wherever they are. I don't remember because, you're talking almost over 40 years ago. I called them and I asked, did you get those records out of the hospital before it collapsed? And they said, no, we've lost all the records. So that was a dry hole. So I said, well, do you have the staff assignments from the hospital? And she goes, yes, we do. And I says, she told me that the Vietnamese lady told me the day he died. I said, can you see who was the staff emergency room physician on that day at that time? And she goes, yeah, I can do that. She looks it up and she gives me his name. I says, can I get hold of him? Because if he signs an affidavit of the cause of death and date of death and everything, that'll be good enough. I don't need a death certificate. And she goes, yeah, I'll give you. Oh, and she looks, she goes, I have his phone number. You can call him up. So I called him up and I said, I asked him if he remembered Mr. Ellison dying. And he says, yes, he remembered everything about him, died of a massive heart attack. And I says, well, listen, can you send me a notarized statement telling the circumstances of his death? He goes, yeah, I can do that. I'll do that. He says, give me your address. So I gave him my address there on Tippecanoe. And he says, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Now, what? He was at Loma Linda University Medical Center, which is at the other end of Tippecanoe. He jumped on and drove down. Meanwhile, I contacted my contacts at VA and we identified the service members' service records. So I had proof of his dates of service. And 15 minutes later, Ms. Ellison's still in my office and the doctor walks in and she just starts bawling her head off to see him. And even he started crying. And so he filled out the affidavit and I had my director come in, who's a notary. He notarized it, told him what had happened. I said, here's his service information. There's all of his dates of service number, social security number. And my director called down to LA, the VA regional office, told him what he had. And they said, yeah, bring it in. And he hopped in his car and drove it to LA. And they took her as a priority and immediately approved service-connected death benefits for her. So anyhow, the lady said, this all taken about 2 hours. And she goes, It was funny. She says, wow, in America, the government really works fast.
Uh-huh.
You have a lot to learn. Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to Miss Ellison, but she did get her DIC, dependence indemnity compensation, and she got college benefits to go to college. And under Chapter 35, they would have given her remedial training to teach her speak good English. And so she'd have got a bachelor's degree and moved on with her life. So all was well with her, but but she thought that somehow the government of the United States worked like that. But my job performance was not measured on doing things for the government. My job performance was measured on positive benefit for my clients that walked in through the door. I didn't like the government. And there was times when I'd be talking to the regional office in LA and F-bombs would fly because they say, well, I don't know this or that. I said, well, what do you know? When your coffee break is, when payday is? I really have a low opinion of the federal government, and nothing has improved that over the ensuing 50 years. So,
Is that
anyhow,
a strong message to follow?
pardon?
Is that a strong message to follow?
Yeah, strongly worded letter to follow. They've received strongly worded letters. My sister was staying with me one time temporarily, and she come home from work, and I'm cussing up a storm over the phone. So I hang up, and she goes, "Wow, who was that?" And I goes, "The IRS." And she goes, "What were they calling about? About your tax returns?" She about freaked. But of course, I was right and they were wrong, and they actually had to pay her interest because they'd made a mistake on her tax return. So they didn't want to give her the earned income credit, yet her two children had been at her side since conception. So
Right.
like, she's working. She wasn't making a whole lot of money. She qualified for it, but they disallowed it for some stupid reason. I guess because they can.
Hey, Steve, Larry Crowell is on. I think
Oh,
he's got his audio on.
No, yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't. Oh, well.
Larry?
He was the medic.
Here?
I know Ambrose said something about personal contact, one-on-one. Larry Crowell was our medic, and he did a lot of what you're talking about. Robert got shot up pretty bad, and he's truly a hero. Larry had one. Robert, did he have one or two Purple Hearts?
Oh, I know he has one from September 3rd. I don't know beyond that. That was where he broke his neck.
Yeah.
And he was awarded the Silver Star for that incident.
Right. Right.
He was also awarded a geez, what the hell you call that? Army Commendation Medal with the device, I'm pretty sure. And of course, the Bronze Star. So Larry saw some things.
Yeah. Yeah. He delivered 32 babies at the dispensary, and he would walk around. We would be in the team house, Ambrose, and we'd be having dinner or whatever, drinking a beer. Where's Boxy Crowell? He'd be out walking around the camp, talking and, taking care of the people. I mean, he made that connection. Larry Crowell, as a medic, left a big footprint in Vietnam. Robert left a lot of blood in Vietnam. Larry Crowell left a big footprint, and he had exactly what you were talking about there, Ambrose. That was a great comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up the medics. My medic was Ed O'Neill. Ed, I think the Special Forces medics are a unique weapon system for the United States government, because they can be at one moment in an ambush trying to kill the enemy, and the next moment, like you say, delivering babies or patching up people and what have you. And he and I delivered some babies. Of course, I just assisted him in baby delivery when he recruited a member of the team to help him during the night. Ed lived down the road from me here. I'm in North Carolina. He lived down the road from me here, and he passed on a couple of years ago. But what a great soldier he was, what a great medic he was. And like you say, he talked Vietnamese, he talked Cambodian, and definitely left an imprint on everybody he touched, you know, in the village, on a sick call, or in the camp, taking care of the soldiers or their wives, you know. By the way, that general that saw my tit in the ringer was, I just pulled it up. Now I can't, my brain's going. Let me pull him up here. Was his name Bernie Rogers. Bernie was the chief of staff of the Army from 1970, October 76 to 79. But at the time of my encounter, he was a smart-ass brigadier general who didn't know how to make inspections of camps of special forces people. That was my conclusion.
He was a leg general.
Where are you?
General Hankis, being the soldier he was,
Where are
his
you
father
in North
fought for
Carolina,
Germany
Ambrose?
in the First World War. He was a real, he was a real stuff.
Ambrose, where are you in North Carolina?
I'm 25 miles south of the center of Charlotte in a little place called Waxhaw, which is on the North Carolina, South Carolina line.
So you're
We got
close to
moved
the
here about 14 years ago.
Uh-huh.
We escaped the Beltway problem. I got out of the Beltway. I had my multiple myeloma, had temporary disability and then permanent disability from my company. And then along came an opportunity to move down here, and we couldn't have made a better move. We really, really love it. We really love it. I grew up in the Bronx, and Waxhaw, North Carolina is so much better than the Bronx.
Yeah, that's for sure. You said you went on to the 173rd?
I went to the 173rd from Bunard. When I got there, I jumped in a tent and hid out for the night, got some sleep, and an old buddy of mine showed up. It turned out he was a general's aide. And so I had my rifle company the next day. A company, first of the 503rd.
A company first. Okay. My second tour, if you're looking at the screen, I had Delta Company's second 503rd on my second tour, because DA said to me, no more Ranger stuff, no more Special Forces stuff. You got to go to conventional unit. And they put me, I was in Florida Ranger camp, and I came out on orders to the 1st Infantry Division. And my first sergeant said, sir, we can't have you being a leg. I happen to know the brigade sergeant major of the 173rd. And he says, we'll get you reassigned. And I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, make a good shot out of it, first sergeant. Anything you could do, I'll appreciate. And, about 2 weeks later, he goes, sir, you're going to 173rd. I said, really? And all of a sudden, the order showed up. And I was like, And when I reported in Long Ben Johnson, their LBJ, the replacement depot, there were guys going to 101st or so forth. And they looked at me and they said, how are you going to 173rd? And I said, got to know an NCO. That's all there is to it. The NCO power core. That's all I can say,
God bless them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The officers can get up in the front of the room and wave their arms, look at the map and wave their arms. And then as they leave, they say, Sergeant, will you please take care of that?
That's right.
Which brings up the question, how come Top is not on here? I saw he was invited.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey,
But the thing is, Ron, I just happened to look at my email and saw the message. So, maybe Top won't look at it for a week. I don't know.
all I can do is invite people. I can't make them come up here.
He's on. He checks his video. His email every day.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Maybe we needed a heads up for a week and then a heads up a day ahead of time and then a heads up with travel.
I had 2 days before and then the day
I
before.
just saw it just now. I chimed on.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys want to see something interesting? Let me show you the desktop on my laptop. That shows. Does that show? Yeah, not too well. I need to be further away. That's Bunard today.
Wow.
That's what it
Tell us
looks
about, tell us, what does it look like?
like. Fewer people live there. What would you say? There's maybe 75 people living there.
Yeah, it's a small, like a clan of people. They all kind of seem to live together.
Uh-huh.
They look after each other. It's like when we showed up, everybody came out to see us.
Not at first.
Yeah, it was really quiet, like,
Well, we got there during POC time, and you know what POC time's like. And so they were kind of peering out their windows, wondering what the hell some Americans, 2 white people and a black child, would be doing in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the day.
yeah.
And what it started, it was the little girls came out.
Yeah, the little girls came out to play first because they saw our little girl.
Because our daughter's 10 years old. Was it 10 years old
She
at
was
the
9
time?
or 10 years old at the time.
No,
And they
she's
were
10.
well.
It was August of 2014. Yeah. No, she was 10.
Okay, because last time you told me she's 9, so I don't know.
Well,
Were,
she don't.
were these folks living right there in?
Yeah, they're living
around the
mostly
camp, or were they down at
right
the
along the runway.
There was a little store there.
Yeah.
Like there, you could get a soda, and there was a pool table maybe or something like
Yeah,
that.
and TVs.
Yeah, outdoor,
And-
all outdoor.
Yeah.
And
But a covered patio type place. And it was the little store and everything is about out past you know where the showers were? It was right there. So you come up the old road that went up into the camp and then ended at the team house, but it punched on through to the like where the generators were, and there we had an ammo bunker out there. It just connects it connects with the runway, make a right turn and walk maybe 50 feet and then put you about where the showers were. But between the showers and the runway, that little area right there. And that's where the little store was. And it was somebody's house at the front. You know, they had cold drinks and snacks and stuff. So it was nice. Everybody was really nice. And of course, I couldn't speak Vietnamese at all by then. 53 years without speaking it, you really forget
yeah,
it.
it went from like 0 people out to all of a sudden the whole
Everybody-
family was everybody.
The whole
came out.
village showed up.
Yeah, to check us out, but they were not staring at us. I didn't feel
No, they were
invaded at
friendly
all.
and smiled.
Yeah, they joined us in with their, you know, like we were just one of them.
And then the one girl called, she broke out her smartphone and called the hotel where we were staying in Saigon, so that the desk clerk, who could speak English and knew what we were doing, could tell her what was going on. So, and so let me tell you something, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
The people in Bunard had smartphones and we were still carrying flip phones. So when we got back to the United States, we decided to modernize, at least as modern as Bunard, and we went out and bought smartphones.
Did you take a car? Did you drive up?
We just rented a
How are
car.
the roads
We had to walk
between
the
Saigon and Bunard?
Yeah, you remember where the school was?
Yeah.
Okay, right there, there was a big mud puddle. And because, you know, it was August and that's pretty much the rainy season. And the car couldn't make it that last 150 feet or something. So the driver just waited there and we walked on up through the camp. And as we walked, I was explaining where everything was. Of course, nothing was there. But I got to tell you, I am a human GPS. My very, very first time back to Bunard, which was in 2003, we met a talking head from the Saigon TV station who said she'd let us use her car and drive her to drive us up there. They knew where it was, all that, yada, yada, yada. And actually they got lost. But as we were driving, I told my daughter, Tracy, I think we're almost there because the topography was right. And they said, oh, no, we're not there. You know, whatever. She talked to we had an interpreter with us. And then they drove up to where you were just talking about, Ron, where the incident with the tunnels and all that, that was, what was that called? Duck, Duke Bond. Duke Bond. We got up to about Duke Bond on Highway 14, and they realized they'd gone too far. They said, well, they stopped and asked them. People said, oh no, it was back there, you know, and sure enough, it was where I told them where it was. And so they went back, turned down the dirt road that the people told them, which is where I said it was, and they still couldn't find it. And finally they said, listen, can you, do you think you can find it? You know, I hadn't been there in 34 years. Yeah, I think so. So they started driving. I said, turn left here on this little dirt road. We turned left, and we were driving down this dirt road through the jungle, and I go, stop. And they stopped, and we were surrounded by jungle. And Tracy and I, my daughter, got out, and we walked 40 feet through the jungle to the north end of our runway. So even though 43 years or 34 years, no maps, no idea, and people giving us wrong directions, I walked right to the camp. So I really, well, everybody just calls me a human GPS because everywhere I go, I always know where everything is.
Was the jungle still there, or was it
No, they
down
cleared
any at all?
They cleared back a lot of the jungle and put in rubber trees. And then they grow, there's a little bit of truck farming going on, you know, people growing maybe a quarter acre of vegetables, that kind of stuff. And when we got there, I don't know
I
where they,
remember a few really nice little homes that looked fairly new.
yeah, they were all stuccoed homes, but not much bigger than the average person in America's detached garage.
Right. They weren't very big, but they were really nice.
Yeah, because, you know, the Asians keep their stuff clean, cleaner than Americans do. So, yeah, it's nice there. I like Bunard. I just wish I could still speak the language. Not that I was ever that good, but
You talked
you
about 75 people being there. Are you talking just on that area by the runway, or is there another?
right along the runway. If you go back in, Ron, you remember when we went on patrol, we walked down that main road through the little village. The mountain yards were on the, as you're walking down, they were on the left, and on the right was the New Life Hamlet, those all those buildings made with corrugated steel that had the Vietnamese and the Cambodians living there. Then you keep on going down that, and then there was a little bridge over the creek that flowed out of our dam and eventually got down to QL 14 or Highway 14. And that's where everybody lives now.
Okay.
And so whatever, that's like maybe 2 miles, 2.5 miles from the camp. So there's just not that many people up at the camp. But, you know, you have the lake there and the water, and the road that we took down to the lake still has a lot of houses along that too.
Mm.
It's just a dirt road. And that was the road the people took me up after they admitted they were lost, but I knew we still weren't to the camp yet. And so I knew the camp was off to our left, so I had them turn left. And I felt we'd gone far enough and then walked through the jungle, and sure enough, we're right at the camp. So when I took Julia and Caitlin to the camp in 2014, even though nothing was there, I was pointing out where everything was, where our rooms were, where the talk was,
Where he
where
got
the
shot.
was. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
stayed
I
there.
took pictures standing right where Charles Henson found me. So
It's right next to that place.
yeah, it's a nice house right there.
Was
It's funny,
Highway 14 a well-developed road? 2 lane, 4 lane? What was it?
In 2004, it was a toll road. In other words, you had this, after you left Dong Xuai, there was you had another toll station probably about 8 clicks past Dong Xuai coming towards Bunard. You had to stop and pay the toll. And in truly communist fashion, you had to stop the car, go over to a building and buy a token, and then go put the token in, you know, into the little booth out there on the road where the guy's watching. So, you know, it's got 2 people working to where, you know, you could just throw a coin in and make it happy, but no, they don't do that. But when we were there in 2014, they took the tolls up, toll booths, toll plazas are out. But there are high tension power lines because that whole area, you know, when you go up Highway 14 past Bunard and you're going up towards Duke Fong, but you're not to Duke Fong yet, there's a left turn that goes up to Song Bay. Well, up beyond that, just beyond that intersection is a huge lake and hydroelectric project. So the power lines are coming down through the Bunard area of operations down to Dong Xuai and then on down to Saigon. So it's really strange to see all that development there, all the modern world, because I don't know whether you ever drove that road between Bunard and Dong Xuai, but you know, it's just basically a single track. As you drive down it, Charles Henson and I drove it one time, well and back. So, but the brush is hitting, we were on the 3/4 ton, and brush was hitting both sides of the vehicle as we drove it. But now it's a divided highway. So it's a nice road. It's really a nice.
As you go down south on Highway 14 back towards Saigon, is that, are there villages? Are there developments along there?
Yeah, exactly. Everything is developed in there. Dong Xuai is a pretty big city. Dong Xuai, there were a lot of traffic lights there, wasn't there? I went through Dong Xuai.
I don't remember which one was Dong
Dong
Xuai.
Xuai, as we left
Is
Bunard.
that the place where I went shopping and found that?
No, that's the little village that I was telling where most of the people from Bunard live.
Oh, okay.
Only a few, maybe 75 live up where
It
the
was
actual.
very populated all around there.
Yeah, it's all populated. Maybe every 5 miles or something is a city of 5 to
I do
20,000.
remember some hills of jungle though that were.
Yeah, there's plenty of jungle, but a lot of it has been converted to rubber plantations and stuff like that. A lot of rubber trees around Bunard now. And there was some abandoned ones there on the southeast end of our runway. You remember there was some abandoned rubber trees, but not in production. They were just growing there.
What, going wild maybe?
Yeah, well, especially because Bunard had an asshole demo man that would go down and screw with them, wrap deck cord around them and blast them, see what would happen. That was me. But now it's actually producing rubber, commercially. It's really a nice place, and the people are really friendly. But it's still rural. But by time you leave, you peel off a Highway 14 down past Dong Xuai, and you make a left towards Saigon. It's really developed there. And then getting out of Saigon in the morning took us a couple hours, didn't it? Because of rush hour.
It was really busy.
Yeah, and we had there was a underground tunnel that went underneath whatever river that is out by Bien Hoa. And but once we got through that tunnel and out into the open road, then the traffic moved well. But getting out to Bien Hoa, it was really it was a pain. So a lot of traffic. So, but I like it. I prefer Hanoi to Saigon. Hanoi, the people are much happier with their life, if you know what I mean. In other words, they sit around there in a good mood. But in Saigon, everybody is focused on making the almighty buck. And I think that was what we left behind. You know, that if you try hard enough, you will get ahead. And the people in Saigon are just all wearing blinders, trying to make a buck. Not dishonestly. Nobody ever tried to rip me off on any of my 4 trips. But in fact, when our first trip to Bunard in 2003, the lady let us use her vehicle and her driver, and we didn't put any gas in, nor did we pay the toll. Her driver paid for everything. She paid for everything. It cost us nothing to go to Bunard. Oh, well, we paid the interpreter. We took an interpreter with her because her driver didn't speak English. But that lady, when she first approached me, I'm still of the mindset of the Vietnam War. And here's this gorgeous woman walks up to me out of the clear blue sky and starts talking to me. I thought, this is disgusting. Some hooker's going to talk to me. I'm sitting here with my daughter. And I found out that nothing was further from the truth. She was a news lady. She wasn't trying to do a news story. Just curious about Americans coming to America or to Vietnam. And when we told her we were going to rent a car, she said, I won't hear it. You're taking my car. It's not going to cost you anything.
There it is. And we're back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lean on it.
Vietnam it's nothing at all like the country we left behind. Nothing. It's just everything has changed. The people have changed. The topography has changed. None of them care about the war. None of them. They still like Ho Chi Minh because they consider Ho Chi Minh gave them an independent nation. They gripe about their government like I gripe about ours. And I mean, they seriously gripe, and they gripe to strangers. They'll gripe to Americans about their government. Because if you guys read the news, there's a lot of corruption in Vietnam in the highest officials of the party. And it goes all the way to the top. And I read where somebody in a high official in the Vietnam government last week got 8 years in prison for corruption. It's bad. But the average person is not out there trying to beat you out of a dollar. In fact, they will spend their money on you. Just to show that they have the money, I guess. I don't know. They're just really friendly people.
I think there's a very strong division between the government and the people. And
Yeah.
different
Yeah,
people.
the communist government is corrupt.
The communist government is not
But it's-
working on an ideology. Communism is gone.
Yeah.
They have a rice bowl. They have an investment in that party.
But Vietnam is a free market economy, much like the US. They tried communist model of the government controlling everything till about 1993. And then they discovered our economy is falling apart. So they opened it up to a free market economy. And it is a free market economy. But the government officials are still corrupt. And the government officials are, I hate to say this, I hope none of you guys are really strong Democrats or really strong Republicans, but they are what both the parties, I feel, want in the United States, a one-party system. But I think the big core of the political, of course, it's never going to happen, but a lot of diehard Republicans and diehard Democrats want their party to make all the decisions and not consider the voice of the other party. Well, that's what communism is. One party makes all the decisions and nobody else is allowed to dissent. So as that goes, Vietnam is a failure politically because communism is a failure. But but the economy is great. A lot of businesses, and you can work for private businesses or, you can work for the government. So it's up to you. But more and more private businesses because the government cannot compete with private.
When you were there, did you see more motorcycles or more?
Oh yeah,
cars?
Mopeds,
yeah, and they drive in unison.
quiet.
Yeah, they're quiet. In other words, when we were there during the war, they were pretty noisy. But now they're really, really quiet, just a soft hum to them.
One thing I noticed that I thought was a little different is there's no women driving cars. They all drive mopeds, and very few. I never saw any women drive a car. It's all men driving cars, and the women had all the mopeds.
Yeah, well,
The men did too.
Yeah.
And the people are a little more. They're not as hard as us. They're softer people. They're gentle people.
Yeah.
What kind of cars did you see?
Pretty much every
Toyotas.
kind of small car that you can
Yeah,
think of.
Toyota, still Daihatsu, which they had when we were there.
There's a few vans, but most of the cars were fairly small.
But they were, and they did have those Chinese junkers. I don't remember what they're called.
They didn't have the same brand names as our cars, but they looked a lot like our
Well,
cars.
you could recognize a Toyota.
Right.
Well, the Toyota had the Toyota logo on it, and Hyundai's had Hyundai logo, and
But there was some named cars
Mitsubishi
that I've
had
never
their-
seen.
and Mazdas. It's just typical Asian cars, but they also had an infusion of those Chinese junk cars. I don't know what they're called. because they're cheap.
Of course, they had some tuk-tuks too, didn't they?
Yeah, not many,
Little,
but mostly
bicycles.
cyclos. They still had cyclos. I like that. Uh, but I don't know. You didn't see any American cars, no full size cars. What you see here, no big SUVs or anything. But they did have vans that you could rent. And if you rent a vehicle in Vietnam, it comes with a driver. You can't rent it and drive yourself. So even though you may have an international.
You don't want to drive there anyway if you drive in America, because they drive so much different there that you would feel really intimidated by their driving. They are real skillful drivers.
Yeah. For example, we had to cross a really busy street in Saigon, and it was bumper to bumper, and it was rush hour. And we were waiting, and there's not going to be any break. And finally, a Vietnamese man come up to us and said, just go out and start walking. And sure enough, we walked right out into all this rush hour traffic, and everybody slowed and water.
They weave around you, and
They-
it's amazing. They're amazing drivers, and
Yeah.
in the intersections has no stoplights or anything. They just weave through each
They
other.
had stoplights.
But
but they-
very few places work.
Oh, well, yeah.
They would just weave right through each other, and I just could not believe how they could drive and how they could get through that.
On one of my trips to Hanoi, I hired a cyclo for the day, and we would come up on a really busy street. He didn't even slow down. He just rode right out into all the traffic, and it's like scared the hell out of me. But everybody just parts like Moses parting the Red Sea. They're very, very courteous. In America, that will get you killed.
Yeah, you don't, like I said, if you aren't used to driving there, don't drive. Let somebody else drive for you, because they're a whole different kind of driving.
Yeah, the logic is different. You will make a mistake. You'll kill somebody. You'll kill yourself.
Yeah, you have to be there a while before you catch on how
It
they
doesn't
drive.
cost much anyway. What was a car rental?
I
$60 or something.
I don't remember it being even a dent or.
Yeah, we
so,
thought it was nothing.
Yeah.
It was less than our hotel room was for a night.
right.
Well, let me ask you your recommendation. You've been back to Vietnam now, you've said several times.
Yeah, 4 trips.
And overall, would you recommend that, this is a large question, would you recommend Vietnam veterans make a pilgrimage back to Vietnam?
Absolutely. And here's why. I never wanted to go. I had too many bad memories of Vietnam, and the Vietnam vets that you talk to will tell you the same thing. I don't go, I never left anything, bad memories. But my daughter talked me into going.
Okay.
And said she wanted to go to where I got wounded the last time. And we got there on June 19th, 2003. And I got wounded. If Steve has my DSC, he'll see it was on June 20th, 2019. So it was one day. No, we got there on the 18th. So it was 2 days short of the 34th anniversary of my
Anniversary, yeah.
And that last night, after the TV chick lined up the car for us, I couldn't sleep. I thought, am I going to make a fool out of myself in front of my grown daughter? Because my daughter was 33 years old or whatever. And I just couldn't sleep. I wonder how I'm going to deal with the demons in my closet. And I got up there and saw how happy everybody was and how beautiful it was. Every year or every night from 1969 to 2003, I had the same recurring bad dream. I was left alone, which I wound up alone. If you read my DSC, you'll see, yeah, the idiot was alone. I always dreamt that I wound up alone. I always dreamt that I ran out of ammunition. And right at the end of the dream, a communist would come over and kill me. And that would wake me up. Had the same dream every night for 34 years. So I was afraid, of facing that demon. And when I went out there, it was like a tremendous burden had been lifted from my shoulder. And I have never had that dream again.
Never had a dream again. Yeah.
No, I dream about, so it was an instant cure for my PTSD dream. But I still dream about Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're all pleasant, happy dreams, crops growing. I was a farmer, so you know I like the crops growing. I have a bachelor's of science degree in agriculture science. And, I was a farmer for 17 years. For 10 years, I was water master of an irrigation district for 7 farms. Yeah. So it was, I needed it. But I think everybody needs to go back and find out what I found out, that was then, this is now.
So
Yeah.
you're hoping to go back one more time?
What's that?
I said you're hoping to go back one more time, you said?
One more time, yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier today, weren't we? Yeah, before I even opened Ron's email, Julia and I were talking. Now we got to get back to. We want to spend a month or 2 there. Oh,
Well, would you mean like both in the Saigon area and Bunard area, then maybe up to Hanoi, the whole thing, or?
yeah, I'd like to go to Nha Trang, or you probably call it Nha Trang.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Nha Trang, and I'd like to
It's
go
easy
to.
to say Nha Trang.
Huh?
It's easy to say Nha Trang.
Yeah, my doctor's name is Chan, Tran, and I call him Tron. Nobody in his staff, when I said Dr. Tron or Chan, they all call him Tran.
Tran. Don't go with Tran. Well, listen, I wanted to point out that when we had that 12-week pre-mission training course, the mistake that they made is that they gave us Vietnamese language the first 6 weeks, okay? And then the second six weeks, so now you're in this intense little program, and nobody went home and studied anyway. I mean, it was like we were required to go there during the day, went home, drank beer on the way home or whatever, and then get up the next day, went back to class. So 6 weeks goes by, and you've learned a modicum amount of Vietnamese. You've learned something. Obviously, depending on what your focus was, you try to learn military terms, if nothing else.
Like Shung Am Mui Shao or Bo Chi Wee.
Yeah. A Dai Wee and Tri Wee and Trung Wee and you name it. And,
all the military.
Yeah. So at the end of 6 weeks, you're done with a language course. So you now spend the next 6 weeks focusing on how to build an A camp, do this, do that, do that.
Right.
Then you go from that at the end of that 6 weeks, and then we went on a week-long exercise in December at Fort Bragg in December. Okay, pretending you are in Vietnam, and do focus on like getting on with counterpart relations when the focus was on staying warm in the Fort Bragg military reservation. So then you go on another 30 days leave and 15 days travel time. So by the time you get to Vietnam, we were only focused on the fact that, well, how do we get our fatigues cleaned the first 5 days we're here? I mean, it was one of those kind of things. And so the transition, if you will, from say Fort Bragg through the whole 9 yards to Vietnam, it was good at what they thought was best at the times, I think, to be fair about it. But looking back on it, you can see where the holes are in the program. That's all there's to it. But nonetheless, you had some training.
That's true. You had more than the other people jumping.
Had more than the other guys, So you had to at least take that from the whole thing.
You were talking about the Vietnamese economy.
Yes.
I just wanted to report that I've stimulated the economy in very recently.
Yes.
My great-grandson and my great-granddaughter are coming from Spain in August to be with us for a month. Daddy's in medical school in Cadiz, Spain. My wife purchased, of course, we had a crib already for the baby. My wife purchased a double-decker bed.
Oh.
It was made in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So my grandson, my great-grandson, will be sleeping in a Vietnamese communist double-decker bed.
But you can bet the Communist Party had nothing to do with it. If it's still standing, it was made by some civilian contractor. Somebody,
I cut out a portion of the box. I'm
yeah.
gonna figure out and put it up as a plaque on the bed, testament to the Communist Party,
Yeah.
Well,
the Communists
Ambrose,
of Vietnam, taking care of my
Ambrose,
grandson.
if you take off your hat and look on where it was made, you might see where it was made in China, or Vietnam.
Well, Julia
my
buys a
answer
lot
to
of
that.
stuff from Vietnam.
Ambrose, what was the fellow's name that you finally found out? Was that Forbes,
Yes,
Or-
meet again.
the general that gave you the shit from the Second Field Force?
The Air Force 4-star who we stayed at in Hawaii,
Oh.
if that's the question
Oh,
you're
no,
asking
no,
me.
no. The one in Second Field Force that came in and said,
General Seaman, Lieutenant General Seaman.
okay,
And Colonel Bernier, like I say, went in, declared attackee, and I think Seaman understood the situation because we wanted to get the camp in, and if we would have played with this idiot for another month or so, the monsoon would have got us, and we would have never got the camp in.
Wow.
But Seaman understood that urgency, and he called General Depew up and said, get a battalion up there tonight. So they came there. I was happy to have, when you get 700 odd infantry soldiers around you, it feels good.
but Seaman was a good guy. Who was the guy who said that, I know what SF wants, and they two.
Yeah, no, he did good. Did good. I have one more little tale to tell about that runway. Toward the end of the runway, we thought the runway, when is the runway going to be done? 3,000-foot runway, which was the standard for Special Forces camps.
Right.
And they put Pentaprime on it. So a C-130 was wandering around the sky, and finally I called him on the phone. And I said, listen, what are you doing? He said, I've got a load that I'm going to drop in Song Bay. He said, but I think it's for you guys. I said, listen, we're about finished with this runway. Do you want to come in and christen it? He said, sure. I said, well, let me go out and make sure there's no FOD, out on the runway. So the engineer and I went out in two different Jeeps and picked up any crap we could find. And I told him, come on in. He made a low pass. And then he came in and landed. He opened up his doors. Of course, the infantry battalion was sitting right there. And the only thing he was delivering, we had 2 or 3 pallets of beer. My XO had ordered, I don't know when, but anyway, he brought the beer. So I think of all those 11 Bravo soldiers saying to themselves, well, maybe we should be in Special Forces if they get beer by the pallet.
Let me put in an advertisement for any of you who do not have the Green Beret magazines. The monthly,
I have them all.
but one thing to note is this particular story here, where Larry Creel is over here. And
That's the story about that battle.
yeah, and there's a mention of Robert Pryor, among other people.
Which one is that?
That is in 1969, which is volume 4, in September on page 8.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll be in touch with you. I got to get a couple of those.
Well, you get a set. That's a good thing.
I have a story about Steve Sherman. When I first got turned on to him, somebody told me about Steve Sherman, and he was selling something that I wanted to buy. I can't remember what it was. It was like the Who's Who books. But there's like 3 or 4 of them. And when I contacted you, said, well, I'm only selling those to people who have bought the full set of the Green Beret magazine. You and I, well, and you told me, well, I didn't buy it. I says, you're right, I didn't. It was given to me. We had to get past that little hurdle. It was purchased for me by a woman named Carlotta Francisco and given to me. So I wasn't in your databases having bought it, but I had the set. But I wasn't going to buy one if I already had one. She just gave it to me as like a birthday or Christmas gift, I think. So we finally got past that little hurdle, and you were willing to do business with me.
It was the who's who from Special Forces it was a problem. I had who's who from TDY teams and for Thailand and from FANG. That was
You also sent me the one that was never published, Men of Valor and SF.
that has now been published. I haven't started really trying to market it, but I really did quite a job of updating it.
Uh-huh. Well, then maybe I need to buy that one.
Well, I think maybe this weekend I'll make up an advertisement for the drop.
Well, listen, I have something now, announcements I want to say to everybody listening. Oh, yeah. Mine's like that, only not in color. It's black and white.
It's not a nice, perfect bound book with.
But yeah, this wasn't bound. It was just stapled together.
This is an updated version.
Yeah, I need to get that. But listen, I have something for everybody who's listening. You all have something to write with, to make a note. All I'm going to do is give you my email address. I want you guys, each of you, to send me your email address, except Larry, who has it, and Ron Copley, who has it. But the rest of you guys, I want you to send me your email address, and I will send you a challenge coin.
Right.
I have a personalized challenge coin
You
for
don't want
Robert.
his email address, you want a physical address.
No, I don't want. No, they send me an email with their physical address.
Oh, got
I
it.
want. There's like 6 or 7 guys in this,
Uh-huh.
but Larry and Ron already have my challenge coin, and it has my name on it, the camp number, and then the Distinguished Service Cross on it. So it's a personalized challenge coin. It's my challenge coin. I'll mail each of you one. But you need to email me your snail mail address where you want it sent. So you guys ready to copy?
Ready, standing by.
Okay. It's actually a pretty easy one. If you know anything about Bunard, my email address is USSFA344@hotmail.com. So USSF, United States Special Forces, A344, that's Bunard. So USSFA344@hotmail.com. You guys send me your snail mail address. I'll mail you a challenge coin, no strings attached.
That's a number.
I've never asked for anything in return. As Ron and Larry can tell you, I just send them to them. So I send them to, when I make contact with military friends, I give them a challenge coin.
Okay, let me read it back to you. USSFA342.com.
No, that's Dong Swai. It's
44.
344 is Bunard.
Sorry.
His
I
email,
got stuck in Dong's Why.
Yeah, you're gonna send it to somebody at Dong Swai, and they're gonna wonder what the hell that's all about.
At hotmail.com, right?
When the internet came along, I went and snagged up everything I could with USSFA344. So I have it for Hotmail, Gmail, Juno. I had it for OnStar, everything. But that damn Larry Kryl, he beat me to
A bank or something.
no, it was eBay.
Oh.
I tried to register for eBay. It says already used. And then in 2000, when we had our reunion, I was complaining that I couldn't get eBay to use it. And Larry starts laughing. Okay, Larry. So he had the same idea I did, but.
let me tell you a challenge coin story.
What's that?
Let me tell you a challenge coin story.
Oh, okay.
A little conference in Boston in 2004 at Simmons College. And several of us from Special Forces went out to dinner at one of the better seafood restaurants in Boston, which is something else. And we're sitting down, 4 SF people, and the table next to us, there's 2 young guys impressing the young ladies with their stories about being in special forces.
Uh,
Well, one of our members was John Caviani, and he walks over to the table and plunks down his challenge coin. The guys were legitimately young SF troopers, but their jaws dropped.
John Caviani has a medal on it.
Oh, uh-huh.
Had it. He's deceased now.
Yeah, I got drunk with him one night in Fayetteville, long after we had both retired. I still remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun night. Yeah.
Well, Top, John Nolan's supposed to be in on this Zoom call right now, but he's not for whatever reason. But I have a challenge coin story about him. Top and I were down in 2004. We were in Costa Rica doing a leaflet drop, spending money. And he was already up in his room and I was down in the lounge. And three guys came up to me. It was 2004. And the one guy was SFer and the other two were airborne. And if I had a shirt on that said, they had the 5th group patch and said Detachment A33 or A-344 Bunard. And the guy come up and he goes, "You're SF?" I go, "Yeah." He pulls out his challenge coin. I pulled out mine, And we had a long talk that he just did a tour in Afghanistan. Oh yeah, that's my challenge coin right there. So anyhow, that's what y'all are going to get if you send me a snail mail address where to send it. So anyhow, so I told them, that I was here with my top sergeant from Vietnam, and here it is 35 years after the war. We're still hanging out chasing women, right? So this lieutenant from Afghanistan, a young guy, he's probably close to 30, whatever, but he wants to be a smart ass. And he goes, "Well, let's go wake up your team sergeant." I said, no, he doesn't get up till 6:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever. And no, let's go wake him up. I said, no, he kicked my ass. He's still my top sergeant. I got to do what, obey him. And said, "No, let's do it. I'm going to challenge him." And so I said, "What are you going to challenge him for? He's just sleeping." He goes, "I got an idea." It appears that he comes back with a hooker. And so we take the hooker up to my room and we undress her, except for her pin. We can put a towel around her so we could take her over to to Top's room. And this lieutenant beats on the door and Top gets up mad as hell. And the guy whips out his challenge point. Top didn't have his. And he called him a loser or whatever. And then he grabs the towel off the hooker and throws her into the room and shuts the door behind lock. Top in there with the hooker. That was kind of fun. Then Top didn't do anything. The hooker is already paid for by the lieutenant from the SF guy from Afghanistan. I think he was 3rd group or something. Oh, the girl came down in about 5 minutes, fully dressed. Well, what happened? Well, you didn't want to do anything. Well, okay. Well, you still got your $40 or whatever. I love the coin tradition, but unfortunately, a lot of people aren't familiar with it. So y'all sending me your email or sending me an email with your snail mail address?
We will do that.
Well,
You will. Yeah, you can't do it while you.
I'm listening to my wife rattle dishes in the background saying it's time for dinner. You guys had enough playtime.
Well, we just finished eating before I checked email and saw this message.
Listen, I want to thank you all very much. Steve, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad I hung around to hear some Bunard stories and appreciate you tolerating a couple comments of mine. And it's wonderful to meet you guys. And I will send you an email and we got to do this again for whatever reason.
thank you, buddy.
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care.
I'm screwing up the names, but wasn't one Grimshaw?
I'm sorry.
I'm screwing up all your names.
Yeah, one is Grimshaw. I was at Buddha. Okay.
Are you Grimshaw?
Yeah, I'm Grimshaw, yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Were you ever a technical advisor to a motion picture or anything?
yes.
Because I saw the name before it and I was trying to put that together. Grimshaw was a technical advisor on a movie I saw.
I was a technical advisor. I started while I was still in the Army. This is a great special forces story. While I was still in the Army in SINCPAC Special Operations on Junpei in Hawaii. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I did a play downtown Honolulu. I got discovered by the brand new Magnum PI casting ladies. I ended up eventually as a military tech advisor,
Right.
and as an actor. And
Oh, I did great at acting also.
if you ever see the movie We Were Soldiers
Yeah, I did.
with Mel Gibson and Sam Elliott, I played Major General Kennard in that movie.
Oh,
And Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington. I played the racist football coach. You can go on imdb.com and check me out and so forth. But yeah, I did, and I did some mostly Magnum PI, but I did King Kong Lives.
Back on my Zoom meeting,
Oh, I was gonna say, if you want to go eat,
So, well, listen,
where y'all wanna go?
I was gonna go to,
well, I just want to thank you all very much for the time, and I'm just very impressed with what you're trying to do here, Steve, and you guys. I have greatest respect for you, and you know, it's you know, wonderful stories, and you've got me convinced that maybe I might want to go back to Vietnam. I've never really wanted to go back, but it's, you know, entirely possible, and we'll see what happens in the future. I spent a year in Thailand, by the way, back in '75. I didn't catch that, but
I lived in Thailand for a while. In fact, not this passport, but my previous one that expired had 18 visits to Thailand on it. Love Thailand.
well, I spent time up in NKP and then down in Samesan. Okay. It's just,
Well,
you know,
I read a place in Chiang Mai.
You know, Chiang Mai. Okay.
Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, I've got some wonderful stories about Thailand, but not too much for here. And
I'll have to have an X-rated Zoom meeting for Thailand.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it very much.
Everybody here, please
God bless
pass
you,
the word
Godspeed.
on. And everybody who missed this meeting and missed these sessions is really losing out on a pretty good time.
You bet.
The stories I'm getting doing this makes it all worthwhile. All the effort is worthwhile just to hear the stories.
Yeah.
Are you recording these? Because this is somebody could put these clips together and make a pretty nice little documentary.
I'm recording them all. I have them on the website. You see Camp Oral
website?
specialforcesbooks.com. But only the I-Corps camps are finished and on the website in their entirety, because Bonnie Cooper is editing them for me, and she's buried on other people's work.
Steve, are you going to lock in?
An email about when we can see the recording of this?
When the edited recordings go up, I'll send out a team email so everybody who missed it, and as well as the people who are in it, can see it.
Thank you.
But it's on specialforcesbooks.com. When you get on the first page above the map, it says Camp Oral Histories, and you can go see all the I-Corps camps, some of the 2-Corps camps, and very few of the 3-Corps camps. But ultimately, they'll all be edited. They'll all be put up there. The I-Corps camps are edited, and they're pretty good. I like the job she did on them. They made them look pretty good. They're not, the content is not super polished. I didn't go here chopping pieces out of everybody's conversation. But she made a nice introduction for everything. And
Steve, are you going to Loch Ninh?
we did Loch Ninh. That's
You've already done Loch?
We
Okay.
already did locked in.
Okay.
And that's why I was unhappy, disappointed you missed that one. That's why I called you up particularly when we started doing Docs Y, because you missed the one I locked in. And I had to make sure you got there.
Well, I have a buddy of mine who had locked in, so I was
Oh,
gonna call him on the phone and see if he made it.
yeah, who was that?
God help me. He's in Colorado. Florencio Berumen.
Berumen did not make it. He-
Okay,
I talked to him, but he just wasn't up to it. But the interpreter I was talking about after the meeting called him up and told him he missed out.
okay.
Apparently, he and the interpreter knew each other quite well. Ed Terrell, are you still out there?
Yes, sir, I've been listening. I'm the greenhorn of the bunch here. This is, as I mentioned, the first time I've had any contact with an organization from Special Forces in 20 years. You know, so I was only in Special Forces for a total of about 6.5, 7 years. I took an A camp at Doc Peck in 1963, March of 63. Then I got sent to Germany to the 10th Special Forces for 2.5 years. They cut my tour short and sent me back to Vietnam to a trouble camp, which happened to be Bunard in 1966.
Yeah. Ed
So
Terrell,
I only stayed there for 4 or 5 months, got the relationship established again between the Vietnamese team and the American team, because under the previous commander, the relationship was so bad that they were pointing weapons at each other in the camp. So I got promoted after about 5, 6 months there, and I got sent up to the to the B team from there. So, and then I went back to Bragg after that, and left Special Forces late in about September of 67. Yeah, 67, just 3 months before Tet. So I have a very limited experience, and I've been a leg infantry all the rest of the time, but I've had some very good and interesting assignments with the Marines, Naval Amphibious School, because I'm trained in amphibious operations and a few other things, but that's a real quick thumbnail
well,
of my experience.
Well, I
And-
was in Special Forces probably less time than anybody. I was in Special Forces. First of all, I didn't graduate from high school till I was 18 and a half, because my birthday's in January. I retired from the Army, was out of Special Forces, and was home as a military retiree before I was old enough to vote or drink.
That's great.
Well, I did 30 years of active duty, but I had Crohn's disease, which I had major surgery in 74, and that held me back from any kind of advanced schooling or assignments and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I had to sing and dance for 10 years to keep from getting discharged with a medical discharge. You know, that's how I finished 30 years.
Yeah,
But then I taught high school ROTC for that 25 more years after that.
Yeah. I did a total of 28 months in the Army, and most of it was training and hospitalization. And I was only at Bunard for 5 months.
Yeah. Well, I was located 20 miles north of Dak To on, northern Tu Corps.
Right.
On the Cambodian, on the Laotian border, and we had a mission with the CIA. I was a border camp under mission to the CIA to map and interdict the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That was in 63.
Oh. Did you know Bill Edge was at Dak To, but I don't know what year.
Yeah,
Did you,
yeah.
Bill?
Well, what they did was they thought they had Dak To pacified while I was just north of them. And they took the special forces the troop out of there because the area was so-called pacified. And in 3 days, all the natives were gone. And they had to split my team. They took the second half of my team, the EXO and five of the troops, and sent them down to reestablish American presence in Dak To again in order to get the natives back into camp. That was my 6 months in Nam, but we had really good combat record. And that's how I got reassigned to Bunard, because they wanted somebody with experience and success to settle down the trouble between the Vietnamese and the American detachments and get the camp operating again. But that was in '67.
Were you there at the time of Harvest Moon?
Of the what?
No, that's your camp. Ed was there.
The split team from Dong Suai that went up there.
Yeah, but Ed was there at A-341, Buddha.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't even remember the number of the detachment then.
he
Because
had
the only
been
detachments I commanded were A-30.
one morning.
Yeah, as I say, I stayed there a short while and I turned over real quick, and I don't know what happened. I think it got overrun a few months after I left, but that happened to my first camp too. Dak Pek. About 3-4 months after I left, the camp got overrun.
Oh.
Margaret?
Well, we didn't get overrun, but our camp got destroyed, that's for sure. Most of the buildings were leveled.
I had a beautiful camp at Dak Pek in '63. The guy before me, George Gaspard, Gaspard, I believe he was the first detachment in there and built the
I
camp
have
up.
to answer the door. You keep the conversation going until I come back.
All right.
Well, one thing,
I
anybody,
had a white dispensary building with 20 beds in it with a red cross painted on the roof. I built
Right.
a schoolhouse. Mistakenly, I built a schoolhouse for the Montyard kids. We started educating them, and I found out real quick it was against the law to do that. And the B team commander and a Vietnamese lieutenant colonel came down one day and bit me in the ass and said, "You got to close that school down. We don't educate Montyard children, you know." And I had about 400 Montyards in the camp. It was huge, huge camp.
yeah.
I had a big horseshoe-shaped team house, 12 small rooms on each side for the teams, and then the front was joined together, and that was our ops center, you know. So it was a lot of money spent to build the camp, and Gaspard did a great job, hired a Vietnamese contractor to pay the Viet Cong off and build these buildings professionally, you know. So it was a really nice camp, and it was huge. We used to run 3 or 4 head of cattle on the camp. It was primarily an old French outpost, and there were trenches built in and foxholes. And one area was heavily mined, and we just wired it off, and everybody was to stay out. Every once in a while, a cow would wander in there, get blown up, and then we'd have some second-class beef to eat for a couple of weeks.
I don't know whether you were there, Ron, when I had a mishap with explosives. I was destroying some damaged mortar rounds, and I was tying in a ring main, and there was a premature detonation, and I barely got out of there. And but the ring main wasn't tied in together, and so the mortar rounds went flying in every direction off into the jungle.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, when I went back and when I went with Tracy and when I went with Julia and Caitlin in 2014, I went and told them, don't walk over there. 'Cause I didn't clean that up. I left it. I felt it was too unsafe. If there was some I could see, I'd put a block of TNT and get rid of it.
You don't
But-
think enough children played there since in the last?
I don't care. They're still finding them from World War II, and every once in a while they kill somebody. I didn't want you guys over there.
Okay.
So,
Hey, I had a question for one of you guys. Ambrose Brennan? Are you listening, Ambrose?
I can hear you.
Yeah, listen, I used to have a friend. I used to know a guy by the name of Ambrose Brennan. I'm just trying to think if you're the guy. And my memory is shot. I'm going to be 90 at my next birthday. The last couple of years, my short-term memory is shot. But I know I knew an Ambrose Brennan. Was it Ed Benning or I'm from Chicago, by the way.
Who is speaking?
Ed Tyrrell, the one that there's no picture of. All I'm doing is I'm a new member.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Ed-
listening to you.
Ed, we both were at the Special Forces officer course in
That's right. That's where it was.
1963. And we both lived in that little development off Bragg Boulevard. And we used to get the newspaper and donuts every Sunday.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm so glad to hear you, Ed. I think we also deployed together the first 8 teams out of the 7th in 1963.
That's exactly right. I was in the 7th Special Forces Detachment A-32 or A-33.
Yes, sir.
And we all deployed together. I knew the name was familiar as hell. I just can't remember anything else about it.
It's a pleasure to hear from you. And if I get your phone number or your email, we'll start a more intimate communication.
Okay, that'd be great, Ambrose. Yeah. If you want it now, or are we going to connect some other way, or what?
You can give me your email right now.
Yeah. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
LTC Tyrrell, TYRRELL, Lima Tango Charlie, Tango Yankee Romeo Echo Lima at yahoo.com.
Got it.
Okay.
And I'll send you my contact information as well.
That's
And
great.
We'll have a great time telling lies to each other.
Because we don't remember, you have to believe what I tell you.
About
The older we get, the
our
better.
deployment, about our deployment in 1963.
Yeah.
Because I think after we all came back, we kind of lost track of each other.
Yeah, we did. See, I went to Germany right away, to the 10th.
Yeah.
And had a great time and learned how to ski and playing around in Hitler's breakfast garden up there. So it was a great assignment in Germany. I had 2 of my kids born in the Munich hospital because I got married before I went over there, a few years before that.
Yeah.
64.
No, well, we both know. I'll get in touch with you.
Well, I've got 2 customers here apparently, because I haven't posted this book here yet for a while.
Yeah, I like to be able to hook up and find out, if there's any of my old team members still rattling around someplace.
Well, since both of you were TDY from the 7th Troop, you're both in this book.
Yeah, okay.
I'll get it.
Okay, well, I'll look up the list again and buy a few of your products there, Steve.
Ed, was Blennis your team sergeant?
No, Joe Sayer was my team sergeant. And I had guys in there about Doc Adams, David Hucks, Roy Bradford. And then my young medic, Henry Luthi, he was an E5. He became a division sergeant major. And I met him several years ago at that Fort, what the hell's the big fort in Texas? Bliss or Hugh?
Bliss or Hood?
Well, there's
Fort Hood, yeah. At Fort Hood, I met him. He was a division sergeant major then. Henry Luthi.
Ed, tell me your team sergeant's name again.
Team sergeant is Joe Sayers, Sayers. I don't think he had, he didn't have an S on it, just Joe Sayer.
Okay, I got it. I'll send you an email.
All right, good deal. Okay, unless, Steve, you got some other propaganda to show me, I'm done.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. And Steve, you're a miracle worker to put all this together over all these years, this amazing database to put all these guys together, and now this Zoom project that you got going. You're an amazing guy. You're irreplaceable, Steve.
I echo that statement.
I have one comment for all of you. If you're thinking about going back to Vietnam and you're dreading it or whatever, I have never met any veteran, special forces or otherwise, who went back to Vietnam and regretted it. They
Really?
all come back singing the praises. They wish they'd have done it sooner.
I never really had any real interest. I had a couple opportunities and I turned it down. I just didn't really terribly interested in going back there again.
That's how I felt. But the word no was not in my daddy dictionary. So when my daughter asked me to take her, I took her.
Yeah.
God bless all you guys. I'll see you next
right.
time.
Same to you. Thank you. I see Steve talking, but I can't hear him.
Unmute. Sorry about that. I went back in 95 or 97. I can't remember which one it was. Stayed there for about a month. I didn't really go anywhere outside of Saigon. We rented a house and I rented a motorcycle and I drove around in that Saigon traffic on the motorcycle. We went
That's the date.
we went to Vung Tau, but basically I just get tired of looking at all the pictures of Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah.
I had very little interest in going back, and I still have Vietnam here. I'm married to a Vietnamese woman. I have grandchildren who speak Vietnamese. I have
I'll be
great,
darned.
and I tell people, because a lot of our friends say, well, we're going to go back to Vietnam and retire. I tell them you get much better Vietnamese food here in Houston. And as
Well,
far as conditions,
I've been bachelor for 25 years. My wife passed from COPD and heart trouble in 94. So I've been batching it since then.
Oh.
I had a small interlude for a few years with a lady, but that didn't work out and I didn't try it again after that. So
it's a long airplane ride. And
yeah,
it's a shorter ride to go to Houston from anywhere. But someday I will find a little paragraph I had saved aside, a beautiful description of traffic in Vietnam. I will send it to you, Bob, if I ever find it again. But it was kind of a miraculous event. And the description this guy wrote was really tremendous. When you started talking about it, I thought I'd pass it on. I had driven a motorcycle in Saigon for about 2 years. So going back and doing it again was nothing new.
that was a madhouse.
It was, but once you learn. The biggest problem I had in 95 or 97, whenever it was, is I traveled all over Asia on my way to and back from Vietnam in a civilian capacity. And every place I went, if I didn't speak the language, I played variations of chess that were indigenous to the location I went to. And I could go to a night market or a police station, and I'd end up having a great time playing that chess variation with the people. I'd lose most of the time because they were a lot better than I was in their own.
Yeah.
But I also didn't know what the rules were. I knew the rules of chess, but I didn't know all the historical moves. So I would do things that were unusual. And sometimes I'd win and they'd be really surprised and thought I was a grandmaster of some sort. But and I did it in Vietnam as well, while I was there in Vietnam before 1975. But after 1975, when I went back in 97, we rented a house, a 3-story house, because that's what the lady had to rent. We just stayed on 1 story across the street from a local police station. And every morning everybody at that police station would be craning their necks on the roof of the police station, trying to look into our house to see what was going on. I just never had the interest of going across to that police station and playing chess with them. It just didn't feel right. I didn't want to do it. And my impression was that if I committed a traffic offense in Vietnam, that the local policeman on the street would be perfectly happy to club me into submission and bring my unconscious body back, so he didn't have to show what his lack of language capability.
Yeah.
The police.
The police are corrupt. If you'd have had an accident or got a ticket, they would have expected a bribe.
Yeah, yeah. They all do.
The white
Everywhere you go, we got their
equally
hands
put
up.
up as well. So in the old days, it was there. One of my kids went back to Vietnam, and he was driving around on a motorcycle, and he got stopped by the police. He got his wife and kid on the back of the motorcycle, and the police try to talk to him, and he talks back to them in Chinese, and the police didn't speak Chinese, and then they told him go away. And as he went away, he heard them saying, "Damn Chinese," because what they wanted was a bribe from him.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna close this down. I'll send you that email with my address. And Ed,
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten you there in the morning session or the earlier session.
Yeah, I really didn't intend to do this. My daughter came over yesterday, showed me how to set up the Zoom, and she came out today to make sure I was going to do it right. And we just happened to pick you guys up. It wasn't no intention of trying to interrupt.
About 3 hours late for the meeting you're supposed to be at.
Yeah. Okay. Next time I'll pay attention.
Next time we'll figure out how to get your camera working.
Yeah, yeah. See here, my daughter's sons. She's a retired fire chief, and her two sons are electronic technicians that install giant TV screens all over the country. These traveling musical groups hire them to go with them and set up giant 100-foot TV screens so they can broadcast the performance. So they travel all over. So they should be able to fix this up for me.
Well, in the email I sent out, there's a little link to something called zoom.us/test. And if you get them there, they can show you how to do it. It just checks everything out for you.
Yeah.
And have them work on that.
Okay, Steve, I'll pick up a couple of your publications. I like that one, the last one you showed me about the teams in the early years.
I haven't put them up on the website yet, really. I don't think.
Okay, great.
Because I didn't produce them in very large quantities. I just got involved with other things and never got around to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're pretty busy. I'm glad you are. Okay, Steve, thanks very much.
Bob, good to see you here. And hope to see more of you.
Okay.
Out.
Okay, prior out.